What's going on, everybody? Midweek. How's everybody doing? Thanks for checking in our latest Trade to Black podcast. I'm your host, Shad Dales. Good little interview we got going on here today. Anthony Cogniglio, one of our closest friends to the podcast, is coming back on. Last time we had him on, he thought rescheduling is going to be a long process. So the big question we want to ask him today, has his stance changed since we last spoke to him last month? We'll find out that more. Plus, we'll talk about just the current state of affairs. Plus, we got earnings season around the corner that Anthony and I will get into and what we can expect. So lots going on here today as we're midweek, and we welcome in AV here on a Wednesday. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you. It's been a busy day.
Yeah.
So, we had the good doctor come out yesterday with a announcement for his big announcement. And then his big announcement was a tiny ad buy on Fox News and Fox Business News. And it was followed by a bunch of just crazy language that rescheduling is going to benefit illegal Chinese cartels.
Yeah. I love the part where he said we want to influence the Trump administration to do the right thing.
It's just comical to see that he's trying to conflate and imply that rescheduling will benefit illegal activity. It's just abjectly false on every degree. It's you got to just wonder, like, what are they thinking? Like, you could poke holes in cannabis if you really wanted to. You could make a cogent argument for the pitfalls of the industry, several different things with discrepancies of substance abuse, harm reduction, go right ahead. But the fact that they just use this cockamamie language, that shit they're just making up.
Yeah.
It makes our lives easier.
Yeah.
All things considered.
But a 6-digit market campaign. And look, I'm not here to poke fun, but just the reality. And I put out a tweet here this morning as a former TV executive. I can tell you right now, especially on a national platform like Fox and Friends, and I know there's some stuff on Fox Business News, but I can tell you it's a great brand. But you and I have had conversations with Kevin O'Leary in the past, and he told us some numbers as to what Shark Tank gets on ABC across the country on Friday nights, and people would fall off their chairs. 200,000 potentially, but they get big hits on YouTube. But the reality is, if you're really on some of these networks, if the rates are cheap, it's because their audience ratings are super low. And if they do have some decent national brands, you ain't getting far, because a 50-second or 30-second commercial on a platform like that would run anywhere between 30 and 50 grand, could be higher. So, and then also, go ahead.
I kind of just want to point out something, because a lot of people are saying that idiots will believe whatever.
Yeah.
If you were to poll people that are watching Fox News in that older category,
here we go.
I guarantee you states like Florida, a couple of other red states that have legal medical marijuana, those viewers are active patients, probably at Trulieve and Verano. I mean, this stuff is not going to go very far. The reverberation and just really what they're trying to do, these people are going to laugh at it and be like, cannabis is here. It's not harmful. And we're not targeting kids as an industry. There's no reason for Sam to be saying we're targeting children. Cannabis is 21 plus.
Yes.
No one in the cannabis industry wants children using the products, just like no one in the alcohol industry markets their products and wants their products in the hands of children. That argument is just old.
We need to have better
messaging, and it's stupid.
And I feel like we as an industry, cannabis, we need to do a better job messaging. I strongly believe that and feel that, because Kevin Sabat has done a great job for Sam to muddy the messaging and to lure people into thinking that cannabis is bad. I give the guy credit. He's worked hard, but a lot of it is false, and people are seeing through that now. But I come to the conclusion today to say, who is that name? Who is that face that we should have on behalf of our industry? You know who it is? It's you, buddy. It's you.
Yourself?
No, you.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway,
lots
going on.
Guys, just because we think they are dumb. Thank you, Gretchen.
Yes, we can't ignore these guys just because we think that they are dumb. Okay. Good to see you, Gretchen.
Yeah. Positive as usual.
All right, let's welcome in a good friend of the podcast, CEO of NewLake Capital, which trades in the OTCQX under the ticker symbol NLCP, Anthony Cogniglio. Sporting quite the tan. Life must be good this summer. How are things, sir?
Things are great, guys. Good to see you. Yeah, I'm Italian. I go to the deli and I get a tan this time of year. So thank you for noticing.
That is the thing. Italians can go outside for 20 minutes in the summer, and just that. It's that olive skin, man. It's the olive skin, right?
I got the British genes. My dad's Italian, and I got nothing, no part of it.
No?
I burn in the sun. I do not tan.
I know you follow us. You're always commenting on some of our live streams. You probably saw the interview we had with Eric Berlin on Monday, which I thought was very educational. It was great that he outlined about, everybody's all up in arms thinking Terrence Cole didn't mention the rescheduling of cannabis as some of his first priorities. And Eric came in and cleared the air within a matter of 20 seconds, suggesting that you don't want anything in this list that includes enforcement. So that's actually a good thing. And everybody could kind of take a step back and take a breath of fresh air and realize that, we're probably looking at this a little bit too closely. But one of the things we did discuss was that Judge John Mulrooney has indeed retired. And, he thought from the get-go, we probably shouldn't have had this ALJ hearing to begin with. But what was your thoughts when you saw that? And from a capital markets perspective, like, what do you like? I don't want to read too much into this because you're running a company. You can't, depend on all these rumors right now, but we are seeing a lot of talk and a lot of chatter right now. And if you're meeting with people and investors about the space right now, like, what's some of the feedback that you're having in conversations? Because it seems like cannabis is building some momentum here.
Yeah. Well, first, let me start. I totally agree with you. We're not going to make any decisions expecting reform to happen. And when we do talk about it, we talk about it in the context of just giving out facts. It is a fact that there are influencers that are tweeting. What it means, we really don't know. And I think we all should be saying that. On Eric's, the podcast with Eric, I thought he did a great job in coming right out and telling people about these priorities that the DEA has. And I've spoken with you guys before about the National Drug Threat Assessment. That is the report that the DEA provides to Congress on an annual basis, talking about what their priorities are. And I even talked here and did a write-up that if you look at a new administrator coming in, they're likely to follow the priorities that the DEA itself had. And no surprise when I saw that report in terms of the list of priorities, very much aligned with what the National Drug Threat Assessment had. So again, no surprises there. I was thrilled to see Eric be so eloquent in kind of debunking what people got worried about there.
Yeah, well, some of the things he outlined, I was curious to ask you this question, as I said off the top. Last time we had you on, you thought this is going to be a long, I don't want to say drawn out, but it's going to be longer than what most people anticipate as far as any kind of ruling towards rescheduling. Based on our last conversations and some of the stuff that continues to build momentum and really what's developing here, do you still believe that? Or do you think something, in your opinion, could happen sooner rather than later?
Yeah, well, listen, any conversation like this has to start with, we don't know, right? And I am not an expert in these, but I spend a lot of time trying to educate myself and trying to understand what these processes look like. I've actually read the Administrative Procedures Act as it pertains to rescheduling. I've read the Controlled Substances Act, and we're trying to make an opinion or an informed opinion on this. And so when we talk about it taking a long time, long is an interesting word. It could mean different things. Could mean 3 weeks to somebody, 3 months, or 3 years.
Okay.
So let's just talk about what that was informed by. It was informed by this National Drug Threat Assessment and looking at what the priorities are for the DEA. And while Administrator Cole in his confirmation hearing said that he was going to focus and have it as a priority, there's no way it was going to come before fentanyl or transnational criminal organizations, these cartels. That is the primary focus. So when I say long, it's about having patience, and it's about recognizing that someone that's going to step in that role is going to try to save lives by cracking down on fentanyl distribution, is going to try to enforce the rule of law as it pertains to these illegal cartels and some of the activities we've seen, whether they're using pesticides or using firearms or human trafficking or the other bad things that go along with the cartel activities. And then with the ALJ, there still was an ALJ in the process. And so now Judge Mulrooney has resigned, and that takes a piece off the chessboard, so to speak, and that potentially shortens up this time horizon. My original thinking is that it would be a few months for the DEA administrator to make a determination about the DEA's participation in the ALJ process. Because if you recall, back in January, what the delay was Judge Mulrooney said that he needed the DEA administrator to weigh in on some of the accusations. And that was in accordance with statute. That's what he was required to do. And so with, the thinking was he'll take a few months, he'll weigh in. Now we're back in the ALJ process. The fact that we don't have an ALJ and we're not likely to have a new ALJ appointed, and this puts this squarely back into Administrator Cole's seat, could accelerate that time frame. Could he sit on it? Of course he could. But it could accelerate the time frame. And, you know, my guess, pure guess, would be that if something's going to happen on this, it'll happen sometime between now and the end of the year. I would be surprised if we exited the year. But I think for the first few months, he'll focus on fentanyl and TCOs.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
Not to use too much inference here, because I know we shot ourselves in the foot before using it. But if you look at that list of priorities, cannabis legalization, cannabinoids in general, they alleviate a lot of those pain points without being put into the sentence. With adult use cannabis, you see reduction in fentanyl, you see reduction in opioids, you see reduction in illicit activity. You can start to identify these transnational criminal organizations that are working within these states, because they're now not going to be able to come into, let's say, the hemp industry via the THCA flower market. You're going to strengthen the overall MSOs, which are able to then, let's say, get their prices down and start to compete with that illicit market, which you use data from Canada and Germany, and they've seen a retraction in illicit activity with the legalization of cannabis. I mean, shoring up the industry does help that priority list without being named exclusively in it.
It sure does, in my opinion. And I penned an op-ed recently where I laid out that if the DEA wanted, it could actually utilize Schedule 3 as a tool to get at the cartel activity. And the reason is because as a company that operates in a Schedule 3 narcotic, my reading of the rules is that there is the DEA has a registration requirement and a reporting requirement for those Schedule 3 operators, if you will. And so if the DEA comes out with a rescheduling and decides to couple that with additional regulations around reporting, they could get additional information out of the industry. And even if you were to get some sort of a track and trace process that could really help the industry and help the federal government identify illicit and illicit product to make sure that it's only state legal product that's making it into the system, I think there's a regulatory infrastructure there that the DEA could use to really help it with that number one priority, the cartel activity that you pointed out. I do have to say, though, there's a little bit of if in my statement. If they decide to reschedule, and if they decide they're going to have a regulatory structure, and if they decide to match it with either a track and trace or registration process. And that stuff takes time. The person doesn't take the job and then can do that in a week or two. Person needs months in order to pull that together.
Did it surprise you to see, let's say, in Sam's official language and communication strategy that they're using, that they were implying that rescheduling would actually strengthen illegal activity in Chinese cartels? I mean, I'm all for distorting the truth, using your own to set your own agenda, but just being abjectly false and just completely misstating facts just doesn't seem like the way to go about things, especially in terms like that.
It certainly isn't good to build their credibility. Just on the face of it, cartels are illegal organizations. Do you think they're really paying tax and that they're going to get a tax break? I don't think many people would read that and be able to really believe what they said. But this really continues a pattern that Sam has in terms of conflating issues or overlooking inconvenient truths. There was even a post that they made recently where they reposted a survey where 50%, I think was the quote, I actually have it up over here, 50% reduced likelihood of earning a high school diploma. And I actually went back and I read that. I read the research report. It didn't adjust whatsoever for economic factors, for educational factors. So they like to take these data points and just throw them out there and conflate them with real data, real surveys. And there was one they even tweeted out yesterday or today, I don't know if it was Kevin or Sam, where when you went to the actual report that he linked and you read through it, the researcher even says, we can't, I'm going to paraphrase, we can't really discern if it was because of cannabis. Oh, and by the way, the increase in incidence is probably directly correlated to the increased use by the medical professionals in the reporting item. Oh, and by the way, we only looked at data points where marijuana was noted in the file. It wasn't noted as a cause, just if there was any mention of marijuana in the file. So even the article that they linked kind of, I don't want to say debunks, but mystifies you to say, why would you think that you're making a really strong case here using, I think, very misleading information?
What's
Sorry
that
to go
say
on a
about-
rant there, but it's been a particular
No,
issue for me.
It's with good measure, because if you look at like the cardiac study, the schizophrenia study, a lot of the studies, they have those disclosures in them that read exactly like that. They're like, we can't really, correlation is not causation, but we're going to put this out anyway. And the headline is marijuana is the culprit.
Yeah.
It's prevalent in a lot of the studies. Not saying the cannabis is perfect, but
Correct.
if you're going to put a study out, let's use the actual data and the facts.
Yep. And they
strength
cited, you know, what really annoyed me and what's really gotten me hot is they cited a VA report recently. They did this, I think, earlier this week or last week. 9% of veteran suicides, I think they said, involved cannabis use disorder. Again, go to the link, read the actual report. And what you'll find is that there's a laundry list of conditions that are listed. And cannabis use disorder is I think number 4 or 5 on there. It's just that unfortunately veterans who have died by suicide, I think 35% were struggling with opiates or all these other items. And it's not that they died from suicide because of cannabis use disorder. And by the way, go to the VA's definition of cannabis use disorder. You have a list of 7 or 8 items. You just say yes to one of those, and all of a sudden you have a cannabis use disorder.
Give me an example of one thing that you would notice. I'll go to the site afterwards, but what have you noticed when they say like 7 or 8 examples and you click on one that says yes? Does anything come to mind?
One of them, again, paraphrasing because I don't remember exactly. On a Friday night, would you rather stay home and consume cannabis or go out with your friends? And there are some people who would sometimes say, I'd rather stay home. I want to stay home one night.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Gen Zs and et cetera out there that'll
right. And again, not saying that it's not a thing, not saying that we shouldn't age gate, not saying that we have to pay attention to mental health.
You can't keep the status quo. You can't keep the status quo, right? Okay. If that's the issue, then what's the solution? What do you recommend? And I think that's where people can see through that. But it's also a little alarming to see where we are in today's society, where, again, a story title can influence someone's decision and we get lazy and actually don't dig and do our due diligence. And that is mind-blowing, some of the stuff that we're revealing. I actually saw a story that, go ahead, Anthony.
I was going to say, I think Gretchen's got a very good point.
Yes.
We as an industry don't combat any of this stuff in a uniform manner. Kevin McKernan on Twitter, who's part of, I think it's a genome project with cannabinoids. I mean, he debunks a lot of this stuff, especially the JAMA studies, the cardiac studies, a lot of the schizophrenia BS. He goes and just dissects all of them. No one's really, but he's just a cannabis researcher. No one in the industry, from any of the, let's say, MSOs or any of the top organizations, are using someone like that as a resource to create a congruent argument that this is what they're saying. Here's the factual information and data, and this goes against your beliefs, which your shit's just made up on beliefs.
Right, but
they're not using data.
Here's one of the problems of fighting back, though. You know, a lot of this data is the best data is one that shows causation, not necessarily correlation. So there's a lot of metadata analyses, again, that has correlation back to that study that they were posting around grades, 50% reduced chance of a high school diploma, 39% higher likelihood of lower grades. You know, a lot of that is not controlled for other factors to be able to isolate cannabis use in this case as the cause. And the example I used with somebody the other day is you could say, go ahead.
But at the same time, I mean, you're talking about high schoolers. They shouldn't be using cannabis.
Totally agree.
Like they are not who cannabis is being marketed to.
Yeah.
And anecdotally speaking, kids that are using cannabis in high school, they probably have family problems. They could have behavioral problems. They could have other issues. They could have
they may have no
list.
Or they may have a
laundry list of issues that are going. But kids, Eric Moff has said this a ton of times. And so did Mark. The 21 plus argument is null void. High schoolers should not be using cannabis. That is not who should be using these products.
Yeah,
it's crazy that they just keep using that, especially in this instance. The less likely to obtain a high school degree. Like, you shouldn't be using cannabis.
I hear
in high school. Period.
Maybe they have no problem at all, because let's face it, when I was 18, 19 years old, let's not kid ourselves. Like, I was
frightened. I was frightened to cannabis in high school. I'll admit that. I was scared shitless that if I that if I started smoking cannabis, it was going to make me stupid. And the system worked on me. I was frightened of it.
Yeah.
I was in the same boat.
High school.
Yeah.
So were most of my friends. My parents, and that DARE program and whatever did a damn good job at making me think that drugs were the devil. Up until I graduated senior year of high school.
Yeah, I hear you.
But back to the point about how do you combat it? I go back to, if you want data that really shows causation, you need real research. And as we know, with the current scheduling, it really puts a limit on the amount of research. I'm not a researcher, but everything I hear from the researchers say moving to 3 will really help unlock more of that data-rich research that you could utilize.
Yeah.
And boy, if Sam is really focused on finding the truth, wouldn't they want to get into some very specific, if they really thought it was that dangerous, wouldn't they want to get into some very specific studies that could get at causation, which is the real emerald in data research,
and I think
type of research.
I think we're going to get there. If we get to Schedule 3 and they reschedule it, and the government, HHS, private organizations start to actually do research on cannabis, I'm sure we're going to find a bunch of positives. We're probably going to find a couple of negatives as well. But we're going to have that actually now, concrete record that we can go off of. But there's negatives. There's negatives as it relates to nicotine, alcohol, caffeine. Those are still legal substances. You just understand the pitfalls before you use them.
Well, yes. Another key messaging point about them is about the youth usage. And there was a new federal report that Tom Angelo reported earlier this week that youth marijuana use has remained stable even as more U.S. states legalized cannabis over recent years. There were some actually interesting numbers that actually came across, but national data for the CDC's Youth Risk Behavior Survey shows that high school students past month use falling from 23% in 2013 to around 17% 10 years later. I thought that was telling.
In the backdrop of legalization and normalization to feel comfortable reporting that you're using it. How many kids were not reporting it back then that were reporting it now? Sorry, Anthony.
So I was going to say, not to get everybody up in a tizzy, but I would like for there to be a study on the numbers that Tom reported on with that study with adult use cannabis, the way that it's regulated.
Yep.
And then layer on hemp. And see if the way that the hemp industry distributes and sells their products attributes to an increase in teenage use. Because you know who's never going into a dispensary? A teenager.
Yeah.
It's not happening.
Good point.
Never. That's why there is no correlation with adult use legalized cannabis and teenage use or adolescent use. Adults aren't going to go into a dispensary and buy product for kids.
Yeah.
Kids sure as hell aren't going into a dispensary. They can't fake it.
Yeah.
Because the system works.
Well said. Business side, we actually have a new market that's going live in the U.S. this week, and it's the state of Delaware. Do you know much about it, Anthony? And have you had any interest, any conversations pertaining to that market?
We've had a couple of folks reach out to us that were looking to expand into Delaware. We like it. Appears to have some really strong dynamics. It's small compared to some other states, so the level of activity will be limited. But anytime you get a new state turning on, it's exciting for the industry. Even though it's a small state, still exciting to see that progress.
I don't know what they get annually for tourists, but I would think it'd be a lot, would it not?
Oh, during the summertime. Yeah. During the summertime, a lot of people go down to Delaware.
Yeah. What's north of Massachusetts? Is it Maine?
You've got Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont north of Massachusetts.
What did you think of that interview last week we had with Steve Robinson and some of those illegal grows, as many as 300 in that state alone? Did that blow your mind?
It really does. It really does. It makes you ask, is it happening in New Hampshire? Is it happening in Vermont? Why is it only Maine? I kind of get it because you're along the shore, you're bordered with, geographically, you probably have easier border access. But it's scary. It's stunning. And then to see some of the raids occurring even out west, these are very sophisticated maybe not sophisticated growing techniques, but sophisticated in terms of their organization and the money, that's gone into and the thought that's gone into developing these properties and developing these distribution systems.
I've heard they're everywhere. I've heard Maine is not an outlier. I've heard they're in New Jersey,
Oklahoma.
New York, Oklahoma, Missouri, New Mexico. I mean, they're definitely in California.
Ontario, they're
and
everywhere.
The West Coast. They're probably all over BC. There's probably tons of BC bud that's being grown by illegal cartels and gangs that are coming straight into the U.S. They're everywhere. Steve's doing a great job shining a light on what's going on in Maine, but you can't believe that that's not prevalent coast to coast. There's probably a ton of them in Florida that just no one knows about. I mean, it'd be dumb to think otherwise.
So here's an interesting one, another rabbit hole I went down. I talked about the National Drug Threat Assessment. If you look at the intelligence community threat assessment, think CIA and NSA, the intelligence community puts it out this year in, I think it was March or April when it came out. The number one list, topping the list of threats to America, transnational criminal organizations, ahead of Iran, North Korea, and Russia for the first time ever. And so you have the threat assessment on the one hand talking about these cartels, particularly Chinese and Mexican. And then on the intelligence threat assessment, you have the same dialogue focused on cartels. And they're using these illicit marijuana operations to fund their businesses without care for pesticides or human trafficking. And so our government is tremendously focused on trying to crack it down. Hopefully they see Schedule 3 as a tool in that fight. Because certainly prohibition isn't working.
No. Well, if these guys just got simple and lived an honest life, they would have fewer tools, better outcomes, and Dutchie connects point of sale, e-commerce, loyalty, marketing, payment into one system that helps you simplify operations and create seamless experiences for your customers. Anthony, if you want to learn more, visit business.dutchie.com. I don't know if you like that segue. Did you like that one?
That wasn't as smooth as the Juggles. The Juggles was like silky smooth on Monday. Yeah, that was good though.
I was trying. I was just waiting for that. I was just kind of leaning in, waiting for my opportunity, but I got it.
We need Orange to have like a sound that goes off when you do it.
Yes. Anyway, if you want to learn more and you're a cannabis dispensary owner, great software system and e-commerce platform that they've launched. They're working with over 6,500 dispensaries, $22 billion in annual sales. Visit business.dutchie.com. Where do we go from here? I know there's a lot of things that you guys want to discuss as well. Can you comment at all? I know we're right around the corner from earnings season. You're a public company, so I'm not going to ask specifically about your company, but as an industry as a whole, is there certain things that you're watching based on what we saw in Q1?
Watching the same thing for the last couple of years. Who's generating cash flow? Who's minimizing the cash burn that they may have? What is CapEx looking like? What are margins looking like? It's really much the same. I don't think there was anything in Q2 that should cause some dramatic shifts. And of course, people are watching the refinancing activity that's underway across the industry.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Stable top line, stable margins.
Do we know? I don't know what we did. Like the 420, I know it was pretty big this year, but I don't remember, refresh my memory, either one of you. Was there a lot of companies that basically reported some record sales or how strong their 420s were this past year? Because that's obviously going to have some sort of saying in what we could see in the latest print from a lot of these companies.
I didn't see many announcements at all. I don't know, Anthony, if you did.
I didn't either.
Even on the first quarter earnings calls, which occurred largely after 420, they occurred in early May. You didn't get a tremendous amount of commentary. I don't think there's anything bad or negative in that. I think if they were blockbuster days, you would have maybe heard that. But maybe your friends at Dutchie have some data from their point of sale that they could share with people to see how 420 was this year versus previous years.
Do you know where you'd find that information? Is that business.dutchie.com?
Well, you'd have to. Yeah, it could be.
Could be. Listen, what's your message to public cannabis CEOs right now? Like, what kind of tone and strategy should they be communicating to, I guess, their shareholders to stay credible and focused during this time? Because, as I said before, there is some optimism growing in the space on what could be, but we all know that you got to obviously operate on realities right now. But I think there's a lot of questions still at large, because once we get past the initial announcement, if and when rescheduling were to get announced, it's incremental steps. And a lot of the challenges that I think a lot of companies in this space, they're still going to be there once, I guess, that euphoria kind of fades a bit, and why we're obviously going to need banking eventually in this industry to really take it to the next step.
Yeah, listen, I'm not one to give advice to other people. I think people who are running businesses, whether they're public or private in this company, are waking up every day, doing the hard work to try to make their businesses work. Some of them are being successful. Some of them still have some work to do. But I bet everybody's waking up every day thinking about how they could do the right thing for their customer, the right thing for their employees, and the right thing for their shareholders.
Yeah. Well said. You've been following PA at all?
Yes, I have. We have a number of properties in Pennsylvania. We're also excited to just see that continued momentum.
Yeah.
Don't know which way that one's going to go either. Flip a coin.
Yeah,
I know.
It's
Hard
they got to get their shit together with their budget. I mean, they really got to come to terms to get that budget done and just get cannabis through.
The one thing that gives me a little optimism, because I'm an optimist at heart, is we're still talking about it, and we're entering August just about. In previous sessions, I believe it's died earlier than this in the dialogue. So listen, if there's something positive there that we could take, then let's grab onto it. But who the heck knows? Yeah.
Then we'll be talking about Florida adult use come 2026, going into that gubernatorial race. That's gonna be a barn burner. We'll see what happens.
Oh my goodness. And so much is gonna happen between here and there. Right. If you do get Schedule 3, how does that impact it?
Yeah.
If you do get,
it was interesting though, because I don't know if you saw, but earlier in the week, everybody was talking about Joe Gruters, how Donald Trump nominated him for RNC chair. And then people were being like, oh, Joe Gruters supported Amendment 3 in Florida. He supports cannabis. This is great. And I'm like, guys, Donald Trump is doing that to basically fuck with Ron DeSantis, because Ron DeSantis just publicly said this. He railroaded Joe Gruters as CFO of Florida simply on the merit that he supported Amendment 3 and supported the companies associated with Amendment 3. DeSantis was like, nope, you are not cut out for the CFO of Florida. This is after Trump endorsed him.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think Ron is going to take it to the mat. Ron will do everything in his power, especially if it's another ballot initiative, which it's looking like it's going to be. He's not going to stop. That axe is just grinding as it relates to adult use cannabis in the state of Florida.
I was talking to Wiz Buckley. He was even saying some things too about how he's even turning on some of the psychedelic medicine for veterans, which blows my mind away, being a veteran himself. I just like, that's bought and paid for. I just don't get it, but that's politics for you 101.
Yeah, for sure.
Ron's not going away.
No, he's not.
And Casey's on the ticket. If Casey's on the ticket in 26 and Casey winds up getting in that office, I mean, adult use cannabis isn't, unless the legislature radically changes, I don't see adult use cannabis happening as long as the name DeSantis is associated with Tallahassee as it stands right now.
Do either one of you see any similarities between Florida and PA leading up to like potential adult use passing? None whatsoever.
You have a completely positive governor. If Josh Shapiro could do it unilaterally,
he'd do it.
We'd have it already. It'd be done. Josh Shapiro is the complete opposite of Ron DeSantis.
Agreed.
He wants adult use cannabis in the state.
It's just 1 minute you feel positive, but the next minute, like, if they don't get this passed, man, this would be a great disappointment knowing how close it does feel, because we are in negotiation processes. And let's face it, the governor has put a lot of the tax revenue generated from this already into the budget for next year. And clearly, as you said, Anthony, that's not something that Governor DeSantis even thought of. But based off of that, it makes you feel like this has to get done, especially when you think about the one big beautiful bill. I don't remember some of the things that Michael Bronstein was mentioning to us, but some of the changes that are being made, there's a lot of tax revenue within the state that's going to be lost. That makes you think and believe stuff like this. Where is the money going to come from? And that's what makes me feel somewhat optimistic. But again, I'm not in the state Senate. By the way, we're going to have Senator Street on Monday, so we'll ask more on some of the potential there. That's going to be a great interview that we have, Anthony.
Yeah, that's exciting. But listen, all of this is political. Look at Virginia. We talked about Youngkin. It was a year ago, and he vetoed, and that was political with Leonis and the whole. So, all of these things are just so political, and there's no way to really know. We sit here and we pontificate, but we don't know what's happening behind closed doors. We don't know what horse trading is happening. I mean, the fact that Rand Paul was able to get the language stripped out of the ag bill when McConnell went to the bat for it and apparently made statements that he strongly supported it, that shows a lot of political power still for the hemp industry.
I'm hearing that fight's not over yet from several people,
Yep,
both in the hemp industry and on the political side, that McConnell's got a hell of a lot of bourbon money behind him. He's not going away, and that might not be the last we've seen of that language. And yeah, I was surprised to see Rand. Rand actually was linked to a PAC that had Brett Worley and a couple other big hemp companies that were funding him. So obviously no surprise that he went to bat to get that language taken out, which you could argue that the language was onerous. I still don't think we need to just outright ban it. End of story. There needs to be some nuance to it. So, I mean, Rand did a solid, but I don't think that that's far from over.
Yeah, I agree. It's still in the House version. And so there'll be a reconciliation process and we'll see what happens. And then you had the SB 5 today get approved in Texas.
Yeah.
We'll see what what happens with the House version, but I think it was 20-9 is what I read in the Senate version. So that's, it's 2/3.
It's always died in the Texas House, or not died, but got radically altered and then just doesn't find its way through. But I think they have to do something here by the 21st of August.
They do.
They can't come out of that. I mean, they can, but I don't think they're going to come out of that special session with status quo.
No,
with what's currently going on in the state of Texas.
Quite
the bills, though, are polar opposites. You've got adult use cannabis in a free market on one side and total bans on the other. And nobody is yet to meet in the middle.
Do you guys think that there will be indeed a ripple effect, regardless of what is the outcome in Texas, that a lot of other conservative states will follow suit based on what comes out of that?
It helps. I don't know that it's a domino effect. I guess the phrase domino effect would suggest more of a immediate impact. Ripple effect maybe takes a little more time. Certainly doesn't hurt, but I don't know that it's going to be the impetus for other states to say, "Oh, Texas did it. Now let's go do it."
Yeah. I don't know how influential it's going to be, but what I'm hoping is Texas can create a model that works that other states can use.
Well said.
But at the same time, they're still perpetuating the whole just convoluted nature of, well, you got hemp and then you've got state-run cannabis, and state-run cannabis is now 280E, no credit cards, no banks, hemp, credit cards, direct to consumer, can be sold at gas stations, no 280E. So even if they do come up with a solution, I mean, no matter what, hemp is going to be able to operate in a much more with much more leniency in an environment versus state-run cannabis that's selling the same product.
Yes. TDR's Traded Black podcast here on a Wednesday, presented by Dutchie, host Shad Dales with Anthony Varell and the CEO of NewLake Capital, Anthony Cogniglio. Don't look now, but today's July 30th and August is around the corner. But Gretchen, I hear you. Everyone's plan for legalization is cross their fingers and pray. That's not a plan. I'm sick of working for people who just don't care. We brought it up earlier that I think as an industry, we need to combat against people like Kevin Sabat a little bit better. Give him his credit. He's done a good job for what he's trying to achieve. But ultimately, this is where we need to push back. We don't have that face. But yeah, I think as an industry, we need to do more. But that's just my take. But I know you guys probably feel the same, but you're probably going to keep certain comments to yourself. I'll leave it at that. One thing I also want to bring up too, I was over at Mary Jane last month in Germany. What an experience that was. And I know I missed you by a couple of days because you went back over and you were in the UK this time at Cannabis Europa. Now, I do know that, look, you look at that whole market and it is 5, 7, maybe 8 years behind what we are in North America. But the question I want to know is, based on what you're seeing, hearing, and learning, where do you see Europe? Where do you see the UK in 6 or 7 years? Because clearly it has your interest.
Yeah. I think they're going to struggle to make tremendous strides. I think it'll slowly evolve. That medical program is small today. Hearing some of the speakers at that conference, particularly 1 or 2 government officials that were there, it didn't seem very optimistic for near-term reform. I think a lot of the countries in Europe are watching what's happening in Germany, and they'd like to see how does that market evolve? How does that industry evolve in Germany? And what are the lessons learned? You have the Netherlands with a program. You have Switzerland launching a program. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see the UK kind of sit back and watch the way the other EU nations evolve and try to learn some lessons from that. And so I'd put reform in the UK probably out beyond 3 years from here.
Yeah. What a job the Canadian LPs are doing right now as far as exporting with a lot of the product in Germany. I'm sure you've had conversations. Good friend of yours, Zach George from SNDL. But wow, I didn't realize some of the numbers that they're reporting, but there's some big numbers that it's good to see these Canadian LPs that have been around for quite a long time. And everybody thought that moment had passed for a lot of these companies, but that is so far from the truth now that those who weathered the storm of the past 6-7 years, looks like it's a very viable opportunity for them, knowing, look, Germany is kind of like that blueprint, kind of like what we talk about in Texas as to how Germany goes, Europe goes. And we've learned a lot about that market.
Well, also, hasn't the Canadian market, I'm no expert in the Canadian market, but hasn't the Canadian market stabilized as well? And people have kind of figured out how to make money there by and large. You've had a shakeout. And it's like many industries where you get oversupply and then you get a rationalization and then you get a wipeout. And then those that are left end up being, different levels of strength.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how the Canadian market pans out because they have kind of got their shit together, but that rationalization, I don't want to call it artificial, but you can contribute a lot of it to the massive exports that they're sending over to the EU. It's going to be interesting to see how the Canadian market continues to stabilize and let's say grow as the European market matures and they bring more cultivation online domestically. That's going to be a pretty interesting balance and story to watch play out.
I agree with you. There are limits in how much cultivation Europe can bring on due to the cost of energy and cost of labor.
So expensive.
And, some of the easy places like Portugal seem to be getting a little bit more difficult. You now have some uncertainty around Germany and what's going to happen with that. So interesting is the right word because we don't know what's going to happen, but we're going to watch that market will ebb and flow. And they've had massive growth, but off of a very small base. And so they're not doing billions and billions of exports to Europe. It's hundreds of millions. It's good and it helps people, but it's not billions and billions yet.
Well, I know people talk about, operations in other countries and how that all works. Easier said than done when it comes to scaling. I remember filming in Colombia and we had to meet at 10 a.m. and every single meeting, the people that were running the company showed up at 1. That was just one of those things. It's a different lifestyle and that doesn't operate in the great old Midwest of North America. It's like, what have you done for me lately? And let's get this done 2 minutes ago. So, all right, sir. I think that's pretty much it for now. But is there anything else we want to discuss with you? I think that's it for now. What do you got in store? What's it like for an Italian to be in the UK, home of the worst food in the world?
Oh, come on. And there's some great restaurants in London.
You said this before. The food in London is amazing.
Yeah.
Like London has good food.
Good Indian food. But
they've got really good
restaurants. They got Nando's. That's pretty much it.
They've got really good restaurants in London.
You like the food in London, huh?
I mean, I just don't think it's
you're not going to a pub. You're not going to a pub for dinner, right? You go to a restaurant for dinner. Who goes out for English food? You don't go out for English food.
There's plenty of Michelin star restaurants though in London.
All right. ICBC, that's in Berlin as well, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Great city, isn't it? It
was fun. Yeah, no, it was I had never been there before the conference. And it was really, really interesting, the amount of history there and just seeing the different architecture in the different areas and understanding why it evolved coming out of World War II. It's fascinating.
Good point. I saw the Berlin Wall. They actually preserved some of it and had it on display at one of the city squares. And that was pretty cool to see. But when was that, Reagan? 88 or 87? Tear this wall down? I think it was
88, I believe.
Mm-hmm. That was huge. Remember the Olympics back in the 80s? It wasn't Germany. It was East Germany. And that changed a long time ago. But anyway, all in all, 89. No, I don't think it was 89. 89, I think George H.W. Bush was president already. He was president from 89 to 92, and then Clinton came in for 2 terms and blah, blah, blah.
Someone's got to have the internet in front of them.
There you go.
The exact answer.
All right, sir. Listen,
guys.
good seeing
talking to you.
Catching up, and yeah, we'll have you on. When's the earnings date that you have scheduled next month?
We release next Wednesday, and earnings call is next Thursday morning.
Okay, great. Well, we'll set it up in the next week and have you back on to talk about latest numbers. But best of luck moving forward. Okay.
Yeah, good talking to you guys. Thanks for the chat.
Yep.
Take
right,
care.
thanks, Anthony. Appreciate your time.
Gretchen's correct, by the way. November 9th, 1989.
That's when the wall actually came down. Right. Gretchen, let me know when the actual announcement that let's tear down this wall, President Reagan. Is he still viewed as the greatest president in the last 50 years, I would say, in the U.S.?
In the last 50 years is Donald John Trump.
Think so?
You out of your... No, he's not.
Reagan, I asked you, is Ronald Reagan viewed as many Americans as the greatest president in the U.S. over the past 50 years? Would you say?
I don't know. I'm not a fan of Reagan, but I don't want to get into that.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Good stuff. You're off on Friday. I want to let everybody know that, yes, it's confirmed. Former acting DEA administrator Derek Maltz is going to be joining me at a special time on Friday in a live stream. That's going to be at 12:15. 12:15 on Friday. Okay. So mark it in your calendars. We're not coming on at 11 a.m. 12:15. So we got a lot of things to talk about. He's got some great stuff to feedback. He's been at the front lines the past 8 years. And it's really about fentanyl and how it's decimated basically the entire, I don't want to say entire, but across the country, to say the least. And that's the biggest threat internally right now. So we're going to talk about that. And what were you going to say as well?
I was going to say, keep in mind, you just called the president that raging war on drugs and was responsible for the crack epidemic and a lot of things, the greatest president in the last 50 years.
Well, I'm saying, do many Americans view him? That was the question. I didn't say that, but Ronald Reagan, I think, is held in high regard. But let's not talk politics because you always split your audience in half. So what everybody's opinions is, it's, your opinion.
Donald John Trump, best president in American history.
All right. I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to sway. I'm going to be, as David Benz always saying, be very diplomatic in this situation.
I'm not being serious. Jeff Buck is probably losing his shit right now in the comments.
Yes.
But he knows I'm not being serious.
Is Luke coming
Luke is coming on.
He is.
He's on my calendar.
48. Yes. And just so all of our artillery fans out there that think we ignore them, we have reached out to that team as well. No response. And
I've reached out to Boris. Yet to have confirmation. I think he's in Europe. Okay. But if so, we're going to have a dedicated live stream for Curaleaf earnings on the Thursday after they report.
Okay.
So we should have that either set in stone or not happening here shortly.
We got Jim Cacioppo coming up next month from Jushi as well. I'm just looking at the calendar now.
Jason Wild is also, Jason and Ziad are on the same live stream as Luke. So it'll be Canopy with Luke and then Jason and Ziad from Terrace End.
Also speaking right now with the Verano team, that could be on around August the 8th, if I'm correct. And also talking with the Village Farms people, hoping to get Michael DiGiulio on because we've been trying to get him on. He's a busy guy. And I know a lot of people are very, very interested in that story, and why not? But yeah, they've been probably one of the, if not the most talked about cannabis company over the past 3 months in the industry. And for good reason, based off that transaction that they made in Texas. So again, repeating to everybody that Friday, 12:15, myself and Derek Maltz, former DEA acting administrator under the Trump administration, will join me. And we're going to talk about everything from the cartel to the CCP to fentanyl to the illicit market versus regulated market. I know he has told me before that he has expressed how he thinks cannabis provides or produces schizophrenia, and he wants to clear the air there. That's related to the illicit market and their product versus the regulated market. So like anything that we do here, people might have a certain perception on someone's views, but we clear the air, we set the narratives, we'd like to say, and bring on the best thought leaders in the space to give kind of an idea as to where they think things will sit. And more importantly, how this homeland security can work better from a synergistic standpoint moving forward on how to, I guess, combat a lot of these illegal grows that are, as you said, not just in Maine, but all across the country.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
All right. That's it for today. TDR's Traded Black podcast, again, powered by Dutchie. To visit more or learn more, visit business.dutchie.com. If you are a dispensary owner and looking to enhance basically your day-to-day operations, 6,500 dispensaries they currently work with right now across the country, as well as $22 billion in annual sales for good reason. So again, learn more, visit business.dutchie.com. AV, good seeing you, and enjoy the rest of your week off. And I'll see you back here Monday with Senator Street. So we got some great back-to-back interviews coming up here in the next little bit. So onwards and upwards.
Down to business in PA.
Right. All right. All right, everybody. Take care. So long. And we'll have some more Cannabis in Fives coming out tomorrow, including one about the reasons why we should not look into Terrence Cole mentioning about rescheduling not being on his first priority list, and for good reason. And I'll have more of that in depth tomorrow, and I'll post that tomorrow. As well, we got some youth data that we want to share. That'll be going out tomorrow morning. So 2 interviews again tomorrow. Appreciate everybody. Make sure to like, subscribe, and smash on that bell for all notifications. Take care, everybody. I'll see you back here Friday, 12:15. Going to be a big one. Thanks, everyone. Well, I liked that one, didn't you? Let us know by leaving your comments below, and stay connected with us here at the Trade to Black podcast. We appreciate you logging on here today and learning more information about where this industry is headed. If you have time, make sure to like, subscribe, and smash on that bell for all notifications, and keep the conversation going by leaving some comments below. We always love to get your feedback. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks again for watching our latest Trade to Black podcast.